welcome you all. Just putting on recording. My name is Ankit Ahuja, and I welcome you all to today's webinar, Things That Will Not Work This Year for Campus Recruitment. Thank you for spending time with us today. Now, last year, organizations were battling with remote campus hiring. Employers relied on makeshift solution for the same process. But the good news is that the recruitment industry has been witnessing a new era of innovation. To stay relevant in this ever shifting hiring scenario, you need to prepare for successful virtual campus hiring strategies. Now, today, here, right now, we are going to talk about it. In this new edition of HirePro Momentum, hear from our expertise, from our experts about the market trends in campus recruitment. We are going to discuss the challenges in the modern process and their solutions also. Now, things that employers do wrong in remote campus recruitment and how to optimize virtual campus hiring strategies in the years ahead. But before I even begin, all of you are here. Let me talk about our ongoing survey. We are conducting a study to understand how organizations are evolving their remote campus hiring process and tools for the future, and to find out how students are prepared to adopt this new normal. Now, we have already received the response from more than 5,800 students across the country. Now, take the survey, and you know what? Stand a chance to win 100 assessments for free. Yes, you heard that right. Participants in this market study do qualify for a draw. The winner will get HirePro's AI proctored fraud proof assessments done for you, done for 100 candidates completely free of cost. We promise to keep your responses confidential, so don't worry about it. We will share the study report also with you if you wish to receive it. Now you will see the link of the survey on by scanning the barcode on my screen. If you can see on my screen, we will also share the survey link in the chat box anytime now. And now, without further ado, we will turn the time to our presenters. So you will find the link on the chat box. Do click it. A browser will open, and you can fill the survey while the webinar after the webinar. Uh, and just a little housekeeping rules before we start. Do keep yourself muted so that the background noise does not interfere with the flow. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them up into the chat box, and I will bring them up during the presentation. And we will also have time for elaborated Q&A for answering all your questions in the end. I would like to introduce today's presenters. Now we have Pashupati Shankaran and Mridul Kumar here with us. Pashupati, Chief Operating Officer at HirePro, is an accomplished recruitment industry professional with more than 20 years in recruitment and IT industries. His expertise spread over recruitment consulting, recruitment process setup and implementation, change management, compliance, automation metrics, and measurement and training. Pashupati has managed complex recruitment processes for diverse clients, from startups up to Fortune 500 companies, for a wide range of hiring and other recruitments. Welcome, Pashu.
Thanks, Ankit.
And we have Mridul with us, who is a Senior Vice President at HirePro. Mridul has over 20 years of experience in startups, medium and large companies like IBM, Akamai, Epictons, Edge. And in his role at HirePro, he has a front row seat in observing how customers like Accenture, Amazon, Deloitte, KPMG, and many others, large customers, manage high volume hiring in a completely virtual manner. Hello, Mridul.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good evening.
Yeah, so let's just start. Let's just dive deep into it. So, hi Pashupati, can you give our audience a brief outline about HirePro, and then after that, if you can elaborate, how does the current hiring scenario looks like this year at a high level, and how should companies be going about it?
Sure. So first I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this webinar. So I think the next 1.5 hours, we'll kind of walk you through how the campus hiring scenario looks like in India right now as we speak. So to give you a brief introduction about HirePro, so we got incorporated in 2003, 2004. And that was a time when college hiring was a relatively new activity in the Indian hiring scenario. So organizations needed support in terms of branding, identification of these campuses, assessments, and over a period of time, automation needs also came up. So HirePro, if you look at that way, has been part of the Indian college hiring scenario, the way it has kind of grown over these years. So we have helped multiple organizations scale up their campus hiring strategy, their full-time hiring, their internship hiring. And today, as we speak, we work with close to 100 to 150 customers who use our assessments, they use our platform, they use a good amount of our consulting and market intelligence activities. So we are the only organization which provides a complete campus hiring solution for organization. That is one of the reasons where a good number of customers have kind of worked with us for the last 10, 15 years, and we still contribute to their campus hiring initiatives. So coming to the college hiring scenario, I would say that this is one of the a very different kind of a year if you look at it, if you kind of look at the horizon of the last 10 to 15 years, right? And obviously, I would say the last 2 years that way has created a lot of firsts in that manner, right? This is the first time we have seen the world going through such a big pandemic. There has been good amount of changes in the way people have operated in terms of their businesses. So obviously hiring has been a all-time high in the Indian context. Today, if you look at least some of the large, I would say IT services organizations, the product organizations, the India captives, most of them have seen unprecedented hiring numbers. And to kind of just give you a factor, I think most of these organizations are talking about hiring at least 3 to 4 times of what they typically would hire in a regular calendar year. Now, obviously, last, I would say 12 months has been a good amount of intake of lateral hires, which would be anywhere between 4 going up to around 10, 15 years of experience. Organizations have kind of, really cranked up their recruitment machinery to kind of hire these laterals, primarily because of 2 reasons. One is obviously attrition. Second is the kind of growth that they are seeing in the business. Now, obviously, they have reached a stage where they will have to bank on now new college hires for fresh infusion of talent. 2 reasons. One, obviously, is that you get the talent and then you put them across your various delivery units. The second is obviously to also manage the cost pyramids, because a good amount of investment would have gone in hiring the laterals. So you need to kind of manage the overall balance of the senior and the junior hire that would be there. So that's the reason where this year, all the organizations are primarily going to focus on their college hiring, and everybody's just been waiting for manage the the college hiring, and I'm sure you would have seen in media where organizations talking about at least 2x to 3x of their typical hiring numbers that they would have looked at. Now, if you look at the Indian scenario, you would see that India, on an average, produces somewhere between 9 to 10 lakh engineers, right? I mean, this is across all branches, all streams that would be there. And there are various reports and also organizations which have been hiring in this space would watch for it, that the overall population that we have of people who can be employable or who can kind of get hired is roughly to the tune of around 3 lakhs, right? Now, if you look at most of the large organizations have already given out their numbers. People are talking about 30,000, 25,000. And if you just take the top 5 IT services organizations, they themselves are talking about 1.5 lakh hires that they intend to make, which is almost 50% of the numbers. Now, of course, there are a good number of mid caps. There are some of the other organizations also which would typically hire to the tune of, say, 3,000, 5,000 kind of numbers. So all of this put together would definitely not sum up to the 3 lakh number that we're talking about. So it is definitely going to be a good amount of, I would say, a war for talent that will happen in the campus. Now, added to this, there's also premier talent that organizations, would hire. There have been a good amount of funding that has happened in the startups. So that the talent pool that's being sought after is across layers, across engineering campuses, across departments. And plus, now we have some of the new players as well. So a good number of banks which have started off their digitization projects. So they have also started off college hiring. So it's that way. I would say the demand supply chain is fairly tilted towards the demand, because there's a new kinds of demands that have kind of come in. So that's the reason where there will definitely be shortage of quality talent. So what does this mean for organizations? So obviously people will have to watch out for the following characteristics. I think any organization, so one of the things that we need to note is that college hiring has always been a long-term strategy, right? Because so organizations which have had like really good success in college hiring, they would all agree that they have kind of built this over a period of time. So the first few years, you kind of go and build rapport relationship with the colleges. You start up internships programs, and then you kind of start hiring, because it's both ways, right? So the student also decides for which company they would want to apply, and the organizations also choose people based on how people qualify their tests and other things. So, and in the past, there were a lot of avenues. If you look at the typical offline mode, I mean, college hiring used to be a good, I would say, a mailer of sorts, right? I mean, people will go camp in the campus for 2 days. The students get to know, meet some of these business folks. They meet the HR guys. People also get to know more about the campus. The placement officer builds rapport. So that's how this entire relationship used to get built. But now everything has to happen remote. Now the first thing is obviously there's going to be competition, and there's going to be immense competition, and there are a lot of I would say things which kind of make it a little more difficult. It is not just the numbers. So if you look at IT services, organizations would also want to kind of hire different tiers of talent, right? So they would kind of eat into the pools which typically a captive or some of the product companies would want to hire. So that way it's not even the overall numbers, but each one wanting to eat each into each other's pie as well, which otherwise were fairly, I would say, defined boundaries. Now, what would it result to is that obviously candidates will get multiple job offers, because some of the colleges also try to run different methodologies. There will be a dream job, then there will be some dream plus, and then preferred employers and all of those kind of things. So obviously people will get multiple job offers, and then some of these organizations will also try to apply different routes, so out of campus and other things. So candidates would definitely have multiple job offers, and this will happen throughout the year because even though the season kind of have started off now for a set of campuses and organizations, but we see that this will go on till almost May, June of next year. So it's going to be a fairly long campus hiring season. And obviously, most of the joining starts off in July, August, September, and that's where the moment of truth comes. So it's very clear, and organizations know that their joining ratios is not going to be good. And that's one of the reasons where they factored in that and said they want to make more number of offers. So that's also one of the reasons why you see more number of hires, which have already been factored into that. So obviously in all of these, the candidates will typically want to choose the organizations of their choice. They'll obviously go for the brand. They'll go for organizations which have been either coming to the campuses very frequently, they've been hiring large numbers, or whatever they hear from social media, their seniors and whatever has kind of they know about these organizations. So which actually makes it operationally very tough for organizations. Because you are all sitting remote, you're not inside the campus, you have no way of kind of influencing anything on the ground, because even the placement officer is, is in a room, and all the students are in their homes wherever they are. So which means you have to rely on technology, because you have to have your processes which are very robust. Because college hiring used to be like more like a B2B. As a company, you go to a college, you get all students now. Now it's almost like a B2C scenario, because you have one company and hiring, and these are like some 300 students spread across maybe almost 100 cities in the country. So you need to have your process which is robust. Technology is definitely going to be there. And obviously post-offer engagement also matters, because I think once a candidate picks up the offer, that's the time when they say, okay, now I've got offer number one. Let me see what is a better offer that I get, or a comparable offer. And when people get comparable offers, the only thing they rely on is try to say which company kind of engaged me well, and that's where it is going to be. So it's going to be a fairly interesting season, I would say, and let's see as it pans out how it kind of goes ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pashupati. What you mentioned, big demand versus supply war is going to come soon. and what will be the effect of this, how the companies should be prepared on this. And you mentioned that companies will have to get more innovative, more creative to hire the right candidates, and the right candidates also get attracted to those brands. And technology definitely plays a major role into it. Now, Mridul, over to you. Uh, Pashupati did touch upon past versus present versus future. Now, can you elaborate more on that? Can you throw some more light on past versus present? How was the hiring happening in the past? How will it happen now? And what will be the future?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the biggest changes that we see, although the whole concept of virtual recruitment, remote recruitment was always on for the last 3-4 years. From our platform standpoint, we were building towards it because our customers were asking for it. But over the last 1.5 years, we have seen a significant shift. And that shift, you'll be able to see on the next slide. So as you see, there are various stages of, recruitment. So first you create a brand for yourself, then you start sourcing your candidates, then you start screening the candidates, then assessments, interviews. In all of this, managing fraud. After that, offers are given. Ankit, can you put the slide back? Yeah. So, and then post-offer engagement and the systems that you use. So there has been a significant shift over the last 18 months across all of these. Like, for example, when you had to brand yourself, you had the ability to go to the campus physically, interact with the candidates, answer all the questions. Now, because it's all virtual, it's very difficult for you to have a broadcast conversation or a one-on-one conversation. So branding wise, it has to be virtual, it has to be year round. Sourcing wise, it was easy, for you to do this whole process manually, get the Excel sheets from the TPO or get the Excel sheets from some of your recruitment vendors. But now, again, in a virtual scenario, it becomes very difficult to, get all the students together in one place and have them, give you something in an Excel format, right? So that whole sourcing process is becoming all digitized, where there are rich microsites and registration forms. Same thing with screening, that things are going to move fast. Previously, you had the luxury of time to shortlist the candidates for assessments, but now candidates themselves, they are actually fairly busy, talking to various companies. So whoever moves a candidate faster through faster screening, and get them to quickly start participating in assessments is one of the big differences. Within assessments, the scale has changed. So previously, when you were going to campuses, because of college labs, etc., you could not do more than 200, 250 assessments at one time in one college. But now, because everything is virtual, placement officers are insisting that, process the full batch in one go, please. So, instead of 250, assess 1,000 at a time. And placement officers are saying, I don't have to wait for my turn or for you to come to my college. Just whenever you are assessing other colleges as well, just run parallelly assessments for me as well. So the scope of assessments is growing very high. And by that virtue, the scope of interviews is also growing very high, that placement officers and candidates expect you to finish the interview process much faster in a high volume situation, because travel restrictions, interview room restrictions are not there, right? And in all of this, one of the big differences is candidates conducting fraud and employers detecting the fraud. It has taken a new meaning. It has gone severely amplified. Candidates believe that because everything is remote, they will be able to conduct fraud in a lot more easier fashion. For the employers, detecting this fraud on time in a very smooth manner, in a fast manner, is one of the new challenges. Same thing, extends post offer. Previously it used to be manual, it used to be sporadic, and it used to be good enough. Now with the talent war, quite a lot of your beginning of the season hires, they will most likely be hunting for more jobs towards the last semester of their college. And in those situations, you need to be able to maintain a constant connect. It can't be manual, it has to be very planned. right? And for you to do all of this in a good manner, you need to be using, one integrated system. Previously, you used to have applications in one system, assessments in another, interviews in another, onboarding in another. With the speed that you have to operate this year, with the quality and smoothness you have to operate this year for a better candidate experience, you need to be using integrated systems that actually do everything end to end for you. So yeah, that would be the high level summary. As we go deeper into the slides, we can double click on it. But yeah, Ankit, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mridul, on throwing that light, how technology is changing the hiring scenario so much, where the scope itself is changing and the scale itself is becoming so clear. Earlier, where before tech, the people were getting restricted by the.
Sorry, Ankit, you're on mute.
Oh, my bad. My bad. So I was saying, thank you so much, Mridul. What you mentioned, the technology, how technology is changing the hiring scenarios altogether, where coming off technologies, the old restrictions which were there, that itself is changing. The new doors are opening. Scope has changed. Scale has become a different meaning. Scale has got a different meaning altogether, and because of this, uh, so many new things are happening in hiring, in remote hiring, which were not even possible a few years back. And if I have to summarize, I will say there are six main pillars to succeed in remote hiring. Uh, Let me call it more like puzzle pieces, where these puzzle pieces were falling together in an end-to-end hiring scenario. And if somebody is going for remote hiring, definitely the first thing which they have to look is at the employer branding. How do you brand yourself? What Pashupati also had mentioned in the slide one, saying that the demand versus supply war is going to happen. Employer branding is going to play a major role in that. And then how do you look at managing that process? Now, as Mridul, you had mentioned, technology is playing a role in that. So with the new innovative things, how are you managing the processes? The candidate experience plays a major role right now, because we are not going to the colleges, we are doing it remotely. And are you taking care of the the remote experience of the candidate or not? How are you managing the scale? And what, Mridul, you had mentioned about the fraud. The fraud is taking a new meaning in remote assessments. So how are you going to take care about that? And then, of course, post offer engagement, which is different in the remote hiring scenarios. So let's start with the beginning of this. If you see these Lego pieces, the first thing which comes is employer branding and process management. Pashupati, if you can throw more light on that.
Sure. So I think as we started off saying that college hiring for organizations is definitely a long-term thing, and both the employers as well as the candidates build this relationship over a period of time. And if you see a good number of successful college hiring strategies, is when organizations have kind of been coming to those campuses regularly, and they build that entire alumni as well. So that's the reason where you see that year on year, it's like the way enrollment happens in the college. That's how it happens for some of these organizations as well. Every year there's a batch of people coming to these organizations that would be there. So maybe if you could just move to the next slide. So employer branding obviously plays a very key role in this entire thing. Also, if you look at it, in a lot of the college hiring scenarios, when people are in their third year, they kind of interact with their fourth year seniors, or they would see some buzz in the campus that would have happened, right? And that's how they get to know about some of these organizations. So people typically in their second, third year get to know about companies that are coming in the campus and all. Now, if you look at it that way, because of pandemic, people have not been in colleges. They have no clue about what really would have happened with their seniors. Whatever they would have heard is through social media or whatever communication that would have happened. Obviously, the interactions have really come down. So that's why it's all the more important for employers to kind of reach out to candidates and talk about the work they do and why people should join them. So which essentially means that it's not just a one-time, I would say, spurt or blast that you do with the candidates. You should have candidates visiting your online property multiple times so that they spend more, trying to understand where things are, because there are enough options for the candidates today. That's the primary thing. So you kind of build that relationship with candidates over a period of time. So organizations also try to do multiple things. It's not just hiring that they do. They could do some kind of branding activities, hackathon. They could do internship, and that's when that value proposition that the company has to offer will kind of resonate with some of these college freshers, right? So to kind of build that in a remote fashion, it requires a fair amount of effort. And that's why you cannot just do it once and then do it, because today you'll do it, somebody else will do it tomorrow, and the third day there's a third company. So how will people really remember or recollect your brand? So obviously the attention span of the current generation is also, is not very long. So you need to have the right amount of content with them so that they actually feel that interest and come back to you. So because your corporate websites does not, definitely attract them, but there's enough and more content that is there. And but people would want to kind of understand what is it in for me. And that's where you need more specialized pages that need to be served to these candidates with the right amount of content, with the right frequency and so on. Also, candidates nowadays look for things beyond just the work, right? Because see, in today's generation, for a good number of these folks, the job may not be purely for money. I mean, yes, that definitely plays an important role. But that's the reason where people look at things beyond that in terms of their growth, their job satisfaction. They also look at saying how inclusive this organization is, so whether there's any kind of partiality, because today what's also going to happen is organizations will definitely be hiring across multiple geographies as well, right? So I mean, previously or traditionally, the way it used to happen, because you had geographical constraints. So an organization, say, based out of, say, the northern part of the country, and if they do not have very high numbers, there was no reason why they would come to the western part of the country or the southern part, or they would even go to the northeast. So today organizations also want to see how these organizations are trying to treat us. And we have always seen that the best way to reach out to the college student is get the seniors to speak to them, right? So and in fact, in good number of organizations, they have this strategy where they have college brand ambassadors. They pick up people who have spent, and you have kind of two kind of mixes. One, you pick up somebody who graduated the last year because they have a connect with the student. And then you look at somebody very senior in the organization, and that kind of gives a benchmark to the candidate, saying that, okay, if I work in this organization tomorrow, I can grow and become this kind of a persona. So there is a aspirational, I would say, alumni who's brought up, and also somebody with whom you can connect. And there's always this thing of going and ask the friend after the presentation, "Acha, theek hai, whatever they said is fine. Tum batao, how's the company?" And then the guy will also talk about some of these things. And and there it is not just about work; it's about the culture, how they build relationships with these people, how the managers are working with them, and all of those factors come into play. So employer branding is definitely going to be the key driver, because that's the starting point where a candidate decides whether to appear for the assessment or not, right? So that's the reason why it definitely plays a clear role. Now, what you do after that is also a very important thing from a process of how you go about doing the recruitment, right? So if you look at the entire process that you need to do, every organization in the past, or at least most of them, had a very defined set of colleges that they would go to. Okay, because they would say that we visit, say, 15 or 20 colleges, and that's the only thing. And it's a very, in some of the organizations, it's a very, I would say, holy process of figuring out which colleges to go and so on. And they would have had their own favorites. And obviously, because they build these relationships as well with these colleges. So to get a college added itself used to be a big thing. Now, I think some of these lists will get refreshed this year, because you also chose. So how would a college be chosen? One, because of relationships. Second, the geographical distance between where you're headquartered or where your office is and where these colleges are. So if you are a company is based out of Pune, you typically try to hire from colleges within Maharashtra, Gujarat, thinking that people belong to that region and the joining ratios will be much better. But this year it's not really going to be, because it's going to be fairly open. People anyway are looking, saying that it's not very clear whether all of them will kind of return to office all days, or people will work out of tier 2, tier 3 cities and so on. So organizations are also trying to see They can hire from more number of places. So they have to choose the right college. They have to choose the right degree and branch as well. So in the past, organizations would say that I would want to hire only from the circuit branches. Now, but you see that a good number of people from the non-circuit branches also today have a very good orientation towards software development. One, out of interest, and second, they also know that they would really want to do this. See, also, let's look at the background. When the person would have joined the college, right, he would have gone to one of his seniors, or you have your uncle, aunt, neighbor would have told, boss, you pick up the college, branch is secondary, because you'll go with the brand of the college. So the guy with a very good rank would have still chosen a branch which have come lower in the entire orientation process, purely because to say that, okay, I want to join a good college, but the guy is fundamentally good, may not have the skill right now. Those are the areas where organizations can definitely look at those aspects to do this. They have to definitely allow more colleges, because we spoke about the employable talent, right? So which means you definitely need to reach out to more number of colleges than what you would have done in the past. You need to assess more people. You need to interview more people. The effort to hire definitely has to go up. So you increase the participation. And in a way, if you ask me, you are going to shortlist the student this year, not the college. The college was there, but then you definitely have to look at more relaxed criteria. You cannot have your regular CGPA cutoffs and percentage. And why were these done in the past? Because the supply was good enough, and so you could not have interviewed everybody. You could not have assessed everybody. So you would have said, okay, let me put off a criteria so that I really don't have too many people registering, then coming for the test, interviews, and so on. So that was the thing. But this year, knowing that we have to kind of have a good amount of, I would say, competition and challenge, it is best that the overall universal set that is going to get created has to be a much larger one. Obviously, once you kind of are broad basing your sourcing, you need to have the right assessments, because you relax the CGPA criteria, you kind of added a lot of more colleges. So the assessments have to be really, really focused on the skills and the areas that you would want to be looking out for these people. And obviously added to that is about how do you also ensure that when the test is being taken, you do not have any kind of fraud that happens. I'm sure Mridul will have a lot of content to talk about that as well. So I'm not going into details of that element. And also, see, because even for the placement offices, managing this entire process remotely is a fairly tough deal, right? So because there are multiple companies coming in and you have your students. For the placement officer also, it's a criteria of saying how fast can I complete the recruitment process? How many of my kids actually get placed? So they are also emphasizing, can you keep the process short? Because previously when people used to go for college, I think it used to be ritual. So you have one guy meeting, then the second panelist meeting, and then you have the HR round. I think now organizations have to make it very clear. Let's look at one written test, one technical interview, and you're done. And possibly followed up with one HR round where you're able to kind of, again, engage with the candidate, figure out what things are there. So the process definitely has to be simpler. And if you look at it, if you have to achieve all of these things, the only way you can do it is if you have the right automation to run some of these processes. So it goes back to the same point saying that if you have to incorporate all of that, you definitely need the right automation to run these college hiring pieces.
Yeah, thank you, Pashupati, for that. Completely agree to it. That the role which employer branding is playing in today's age is tremendous. At the time of industrial age, people used to look for basic needs like money, but nowadays it's the third wave, which is social revolution. People don't look at money only. People's basic needs are taken care of. People's uh, uh, status has been taken care of. So now what the candidates want is the social protection, saying that how are you branding, how is the person looking in the eyes of others, and how is their own experience. So candidate experience of going through this process plays a major role of your joining ratios. So Mridul, over to you to join the dots to the next level. From here, from process management, now how does the candidate experience plays a role?
Yeah, certainly. So the whole everything is very intertwined from that standpoint. That the candidate experience is what creates your brand. Candidate experience is what runs your process very effectively, and candidate experience is what assures more number of offers coming out at the end of the process and more joining as well. So at a high level, everything is candidate experience, but one of the things to to demarcate it would be the branding is what happens pre process. After that, candidate experience is what the candidate receives during the whole recruitment process, and then post offer, when you engage with the candidate, that's a separate area of experience. So here, talking about just the candidate experience during registration, the primary difference from previous years is really that candidates are completely remote and they are in their respective homes. They are not even getting together as friends to help each other out and clarify each other's doubts, etc. So the employers now have to take a little bit more extra effort to actually provide the right candidate experience directly on a one-on-one basis. So some of the things that we have seen work with our other customers over the last 18 months is whenever we prepare a good destination with very candidate friendly details around the hiring process, what to expect, what not to expect at at each and every stage, that elevates the candidate experience tremendously. Historically, it used to be done via TPO, but it's not enough anymore, because TPO used to be in college and he would round up the students and provide some clarification. That facility is gone now. Even the TPO is unable to do anything. All they can do is just send out emails. So you need to provide a candidate a destination that provides all the process details and addresses everything that you anticipate a candidate might ask. The other part of experience obviously is the registration and shortlisting experience, that the candidate should be very easily able to register themselves. You collect all the requisite information, everything that your process demands. There is no candidates do not hesitate in providing extra details or answering extra questions, as long as the experience of registration is actually classy. But follow it up with very quick shortlisting and the screening process. So let's say you have a certain eligibility criteria, respond to the candidate faster, right? Automate that step as well, because without that, candidate would be wondering, sitting at their own homes, not even in college. No, every student cannot go and ask the TPO, sir, what's happening. So in such situation, you have to register quickly, register easily, at the same time communicate the next steps, their verdicts very quickly. And in assessments and interviews, historically there would be on-site coordinators who would actually help you, who would answer the questions. Like say one candidate is asking the question from a coordinator, 20 others are actually listening to that answer. So the level of queries you had to handle in a physical process were much lesser. Now every candidate will try and approach you one-on-one, and during the assessments, during the interviews, if something goes wrong, right, expectation wrong or technical issues or procedural issues, everything gets amplified tremendously, because candidates are sitting remote and they have nobody to turn to except you as an employer. So over there, what we've seen is the companies who actually prep the candidate well for assessments and interviews beforehand succeed tremendously. And this thing again can go into the same destination, where you're describing the hiring process, you're giving tips on how to prepare, you're giving them mock assessments and things like those. And the whole idea is that, if you give all those facilities to the candidate beforehand, then the number of questions in the mind of an anxious candidate would be much lesser. And in the same place, all the frequently asked questions, technical help should be there. And at every stage, figure out a way to, proactively notify the candidate. So when they're invited for registrations, through email, SMS, WhatsApp, inform them. If they are eligible or not eligible, let them know quickly. If the assessment is done, at least quickly inform them. Our system has received your assessment. Thank you so much. We will let you know shortly on the results. And then once you have done with the shortlisting, give them a confirmation about their shortlisting and rejection as well. So these are some of the very tactical steps that we have seen that tremendously help They sound very logical. So it's not something that, we have, where we are assuming that you have never heard of these or you don't practice these. However, it has gotten amplified. So now this is the only way to serve the candidate, because there is nobody sitting physically in the college, either the TPO or, your own coordinators who can actually do all of this. So all of this will have to get digital for you going forward.
Yeah.
And within that, just to, as a lead into the next topic, which is really the scale management. All this candidate experience comes with its own scale challenges. So everything that I spoke about, that how do you manage the scale? So if you were to do this via emails, via phone calls, while coordinating with the TPO or some of the college ambassadors, it becomes difficult. So you need to have digital systems in place where, registration and eligibility check is happening in a non-manual fashion. Then from an assessment standpoint, use a reliable platform that can actually service the high volumes. These high volumes are required for two reasons. One is, or rather three reasons. One is there are no constraints. And hence the TPO is insisting that, please process all my students faster than before. At the same time, the student will also, their attention span is lesser because there are other companies knocking their doors saying, I am also there and, I will also give you the whole world. Please, participate in my process. So there again, the faster you actually assess the candidate, the better it is for you. Because as the candidate, very quickly moves from one step to another without realizing the candidate has mentally committed themselves to your company, right? Then from an interview standpoint, because everything is happening remotely, use some interview specific platforms. Teams and Zoom are very good for video conferencing. They're very good for group discussions, etc. But when it comes to one-on-one interviews, doing very interactive interviews, using an interview specific platform where your interviewer is able to do live coding experiences with them, live whiteboarding. They're able to see the candidate assessment scores and previous interview feedbacks and, fill their feedback all together in, one common screen. That will help you manage the scale better, because otherwise it'll be too difficult for you to educate every interviewer about every candidate and then chase them to, get the feedback and the shortlisting decision from them. Right. And in all of this, the, one big challenge that happens is the fraud. That, now that candidate is sitting at home, you don't know who's registering, you don't know who's taking the test, and you don't know who's taking the interview. How do you ensure that, across all the three stages, there was the same candidate participating, and at every stage of that journey, they are actually not conducting or engaging in any fraudulent activity? Because the good talent will have many choices, and they will, try and secure jobs from many companies. But it's really the bottom of the pyramid candidates, they will start engaging in a lot of this fraud, just because companies are, lots of employers are competing with them. So they will be hoping that, I'll cheat in 10 different companies and, hopefully one of them will not be able to catch me. But they will engage in a lot more cheating than, what you would have seen 2 years ago, right? So these are some of the things that go hand in hand from a candidate experience standpoint, that while you're digitizing and automating the candidate experience, giving them more, it also means that, more load is coming to you. The volume that you have to process and the pace at which you have to process, all of that is going to get amplified this year. And if you don't prepare for it, if you don't prepare for this kind of candidate experience on scale, you will be able to roll out the offers, but you still will have some shortfall that you would have to sort of take care of through last minute hiring, right before, just when you realize that the candidates are not joining me and joining my competitors. Yeah, so these are the high level thoughts around this. Now just to double click a little bit more on the fraud management part, that as you are doing this remotely, lots and lots of candidates are coming in. So the number of candidates you process at a time, and then within that, the percentage of candidates who will try and cheat remotely will be higher. So what are some of the things that you need to look at 3 different stages? So at the time of registration, what we are noticing is three very interesting things. One is candidates are aware that assessment platforms do some amount of face check and, to make sure that, if you have registered, you are the one taking the test. So face matching is generally popular in the industry now. However, to bypass that, what they do is sometimes they register without a photo, or they register with a photo where they are there and their friend is also there in the photo, so that the proctoring system is able to say that, yeah, the person in the photo was there in the test. So using these two, what we've seen is a lot of candidates, what they do is they don't give you complete data at the time of registration. And because of that, they're able to cheat during the assessments. And so these are the three features that we have seen, secure the hiring a lot better, ensure that the candidate registers with a photo, and then that registration photo has a single person, and that photo matches with one of the photos in the government ID card as well. Then on the assessment side, number one, which is make sure that only the registered candidate should attend the test. It's generally available in all assessment platforms. But it's the second one that is generally not common, and that's what candidates try to exploit, is how to get this external help from someone else. That external help can be with a person sitting in front of the camera along with the candidate, or it might be a person not in front of the camera, but talking to them and giving them help, or somebody, getting on a Zoom session and screen sharing or team viewer, where somebody else is actually taking the test on behalf of the candidate, but on the webcam, you only see, your registered candidate. So these are some of the places where we've seen that, while you can ensure that the registered candidate is there in the test, you have to use some advanced technologies to make sure that candidate is not able to take that external help in the room or virtually, in any of the ways. And the same thing with interviews, that today, if you use Teams or Zoom or any such platform, you will not be able to ensure fraud checking, fraud prevention, or fraud detection during the interview. So here again, you need an interview specific platform that actually ensures that, the registered candidate took the interview and they did not switch, they did not hide from the camera, or they did not block the camera and have their friend answer the questions. And they were not Googling the answers while the interviewer was asking the questions. So these are some of the things also that, that technology can help you with. And these are the things that are sort of a must have now, because that's what we have been observing over the last 12 to 18 months, that candidates are getting smarter about this, and they've figured out that, if my interview is happening on Zoom or Teams, there's no way for the interviewer to know, whether I'm cheating or not, whether I'm Googling the answers or not. Right. And if I don't provide my registration photo upfront, there is no way for anybody to know during assessment or interview who were they supposed to talk to. So these are some of the things. Again, if you're not already thinking about it, we'd highly recommend you to start thinking about it, because this is becoming more and more prevalent. The cheating rates are growing, and the pressure on you to do fraud-proof hiring and hiring genuinely good candidates, requires you to do some fraud management in a new way now.
Yeah, completely agree here, Mridul. Now, as you had shared, Pashupati started sharing, if I distribute it into three parts, before, during, and after. When we talk about remote hiring, Pashupati started talking about before, and then you covered a lot of during the process, what happens and what are the best practices. Now, the after part, saying that after you have done this, what happens next? So Pashupati, I will ask you to elaborate more on that. And also, since you are in this in the front seat of hiring, watching what all the companies are doing and helping many companies go about their hiring, if you can also share some examples of what's the best practices the companies are using. Yeah, so over to you.
Yeah, I think in today's world, the best thing you can do after rolling out offers is pray. Because there have been instances, if you look at typically in a lateral scenario, organizations which used to have a joining ratio of say around 65-70%, they are hovering around 35 to 40%, right? Because the joining ratios are abysmally low, and it's because of a variety of reasons. People have multiple offers. There's no more boundary of geography. People are hiring from across cities, countries, and so on. So that's primarily the whole reason is. In college hiring, organizations typically lose out people to two, three things. One, people would have appeared for the job, but would have actually opted for higher studies. So since the company came, they would have sat through the process, and anyway, the results come later, so they would have gone for that. There's always a certain percentage that the organization would have budgeted for, saying I lose around, say, 10% of my candidates for higher studies, either to do an MBA, MTech, or whatever. Next is where organizations, at least the large IT services organizations, have a long period of onboarding. So it's ranges anywhere between, say, 3-4 months going up to around 6 months. So during that, as a natural process, some of these candidates would pick up some other offer and they would kind of move on. So that's one of the reasons where organizations would kind of lose out some of these people. And third is that obviously some of them would go for POC jobs or organizations. I mean, so that's precisely where it used to be. Now, if you look at today, the time when a person gets an offer, that's the time when they start seeing, okay, can I get something better? Because in the past, you were also physically constrained. You are studying in a college, you are living in a city. Now, if an organization is hiring an events in the other part of the country, you may not be able to go and attend. But that constraint is removed now. So which means practically the candidate is almost like a lateral hire, which means the person is out in the market, picks up a job offer, and they can go and do this. Right. And most of the time they would be picking up the second offers from outside the campus, because the college anyway would not have allowed them to appear from multiple companies unless it falls under a certain criteria of regular jobs, dream jobs, and so on and so forth. So I think the first thing organizations have to do is keep in mind, one, that I need to engage this candidate, not just from a perspective of this person coming on board. Because if you've seen in the last 12 to 18 months, and we really don't know how the future is going to be for the next, say, 2 years as well. We are not sure whether the person who's coming on board, you might be able to meet that person physically on the day of joining, or you might be able to interact with the person face to face for the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 120 days. So that way, the organization has to build a relationship so that it's not that the person joins, but post joining as an employee as well, you're able to keep that person engaged, right? Because just because the person come on board does not mean that the person will continue within your organization. So unless you build a very robust post-offer engagement with the candidate, it's not just about getting onboarded, but also retention. And since everything is happening remote, you never met the person face to face. The person has not seen any of your hiring managers face to face. They're possibly not heard, especially the people who are going to get placed this year have not gone to college for the last 2 years practically, or at least 18 months. So they really do not know, a lot of things that are happening. So which means the first thing obviously is that the organization, the moment they decide on a candidate, they release the offers at the earliest. Because previously it was a scenario where, okay, we have kind of identified these people, we'll release the offers in batches and so on. Assuming that your automation was in place, you got the candidate, there was no malpractice, you got your interview feedback on the platform from the hiring managers, you get a yes or no, and after that, all you need to do is that, if you have an automated process, good, you should actually release all the offers at the earliest, wherein technically speaking, you're blocking the candidate saying, okay, we have decided to kind of go with you. That's the first step that obviously they need to do. Second, when you start the document collection with the candidates, you also get a feeler whether the person is going to join you or not. Because document collection or the documentation activity is a little laborious process. Somebody is not joining you will not go through the process of filling up all the forms, submitting your school certificate, college mark sheet, and other things. So, but then digitization helps, because people who are joining you at least need not go through that pain of, submitting. And a lot of times, and I'm sure recruiters would agree, especially those who are in the lateral hiring, post-selection, it invariably takes anywhere between 5-10 days to kind of roll out the offer, because the candidate delays the documents. And meanwhile, as the delay is happening, the person gets more time to talk to more folks and other things. So digitizing the process, collection of these documents, and then organizations will also get to know, because sometimes, the candidate would have come in claiming that they have a certain score in their class, school, and CGPA and all. That also kind of gets validated much early on in the process. So if the documentation process is digitized, obviously your thing go in. And from then on, you need to kind of keep in touch with the candidate, and keeping in touch is, some of them are very transactional. If you want to build a personal connect, then you kind of send them some personalized greetings. Some of them send out goodies. Those are again based on the volume, your budgets and other things. But some of the things which you can do at a very mass scale without too much of cost is see how some of your business teams can get involved with these candidates, right? So they can do some kind of webinars, they can do some kind of training programs for these candidates as well, because a good number of organizations also feel that if you spend the initial days in terms of training, that kind of helps you to save your time when the person comes on board, and also it's a good connect for the candidate. You are also able to expose some of the great work that you are doing to the candidates, at least to whatever possible extent they can expose some of these by giving them the right kind of assessment with the assignments and the kind of training that they will be doing. And that's one of the factors where people might decide to join the company where they've got the offer. Obviously, you also build some kind of competition among these candidates, put them through contests, quizzes, so that it's not a scenario where somebody's got an offer and they've decided, okay, now let me just sit back and things could happen. So you need to kind of keep people engaged, because these are anyway people who are fairly young. I think at least the way it looks like, the next 6 to 8 months they'll still be at home. So you need to kind of use their time effectively as well to kind of engage this. So there is obviously a good amount of time saved for them in terms of their commute or any other activities. So you could kind of utilize that time to see if some kind of a good engagement program can be run with some of these candidates. Obviously, you also need to kind of prepare your candidate to work in a remote environment. Because in the past, when people would join, you put them again into a classroom where they go through a 30, 60, 90 day kind of a training program. Then there are mentors who kind of handhold them. Now the kid is going to lose out on all of those things, right? Or we are not really sure whether it would happen in the same way it would have happened in the past. So this is a good time to prepare the candidate to work remotely, which means you give them assignments, they understand how they kind of meet some of these deadlines, and you can kind of have some of your junior folks, give them the opportunity to become mentors for some of these kids, because they'll be very happy to do this. It's not a very managerial work. They just have to kind of probably spend, say, an hour in a week with these new joinees, helping them out with some of their assignments if they are stuck, or those are some of those things that organizations can do. So that's where I think post-offer engagement is very clear. And I think one of the points, if possible, organizations should try to do it, is try to see if they can kind of onboard people at the earliest. Yes, it's always a constraint in terms of what's your business need and when you kind of need these people, and what really needs to do this. Now, the question is, after this, what? Right? So, because you've done everything, I think we have to just believe that we put in all the efforts. Now, let's hope that the crop, where you've sown the seeds, did all the right things. Hopefully, you're able to harvest it, and take it back home. Now, now there could be a question saying, okay, I did all of these things. So, do you think will I be successful? The answer is maybe not fully, because anybody in recruitment would know that any numbers that you plan for, you mostly never meet it, right? Because of a variety of reasons, because of delays, because candidates not joining, and so on. And again, referring back to the first slide, I mean, that keeps coming again and again, saying that you may not really get the real talent pool that you'd want. You might get all of these processes, but how do you really create more talent? So what happens to organizations? I think by around Feb, March, the verdict will be out. We'll actually get to know how many people have kind of got placed, how many organizations have not been able to meet the demands. So I think, so what is the plan B? I think the plan B would be that organizations try to see what are the alternate ways how they can get early talent in the organization. Obviously, the easiest way is try to look at the previous batch, right? But then that also comes at a different cost, different process, and all of those things that will really come by. One way to do is that if you can start looking at an off-campus route as well, which I'm sure everybody does, but try to plan it off much early on. And again, to note that off-campus is going to follow the same process. So everything that we spoke about, from branding to managing the scale, because the returns will be much lower here. In a typical college scenario, if your selection ratio was say 1 in 6 or 1 in 8, here it's going to be possibly 1 in 12 or 1 in 15, because you're going to relax your criteria in every possible way. But then you will be able to kind of reach out to all those people who may not have at that time applied to your organization and so on. So off-campus route will be there, and then it's a very seamless process if you have automation to run your in-campus and off-campus. Because what will happen the moment you start your off-campus, those kids who got rejected in the in-campus might apply again. So you need to know how do we kind of segregate those lists, and kind of you have the same process, your same assessment levels that you managed for both your in-campus and off-campus. We definitely need to see if, in fact, one of the reasons, so we as an organization, we are planning to assess roughly around 50,000 to 1 lakh candidates on our own. And then these assessments are free for the candidate, because our idea is that more and more people take these tests, and a candidate should not pay for a job. I mean, that's the mantra that we've always followed as an organization all these years. So these candidates would be available for organizations if they want at a certain stage, where if their campus numbers have not been met, they can look at pre-assessed talent pool. And here you will get more insights about the candidate, their score. We also, in some cases, for certain job profiles, do psychometric assessments. So you can then figure out whether you need the person for a development role, for a core product kind of a role, or support, infrastructure, customer service, whichever role that the organization might want to hire for. So these are things that are there. Actually, Ankit, that kind of leads me to think that possibly we might do a follow-up session of the same, where we discuss about off-campus hiring, and possibly in the month of November, December is where something could be planned, where I think by the time we would have some data to share to the audience about how college hiring has happened this year, how it's looking like. We would have definitely better visibility of how the pandemic is also shaping up, and kind of help organizations to kind of create a strategy for 2022. But I think some things that are going to be there even beyond next year. I think the remote hiring is going to is going to be there. It's going to be, the people are not really going to go back to colleges in exactly the same way. One. Second, the entire strategy around in-campus and off-campus, it's all going to be one single strategy. So you say that there are a set of colleges where I'll build relationships. I'll probably visit these colleges, but in general, I think the talent pool, or the entire landscape is going to be fairly flat. So people would say, let a candidate come, let them take the test, and then I'll decide. Let me not reject a candidate based because of the college or whatever, or because the person is geographically far away from where my office is. So that way it's going to be much more beneficial. So I think maybe we'll kind of quick time check. If there are queries that we have, or if there are questions that people have, we can take them, and we can kind of address that as well.
Yes. So we're going to take questions now. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat box and we can take one by one. Thank you so much, Pashupati, and thank you so much, Mridul, for covering this up. We started by talking about the demand and supply, and what do we think the current situation is going to be in the market. Taking from there, we elaborated on the hiring process, and we covered the hiring process in 3 major parts, which was before, during, and after. And then we discussed about the 6 key pillars and went deep into it, explaining that what are the steps which everyone should take right now. And then we also touched upon the future of hiring, how it's going to be. So thank you so much for that. And as I mentioned, now we are going to take questions. So in case if anybody has a questions, please put it out on the chat box and we can take one by one. I'll stop sharing the screen here. So just before we wind up, in case if anybody has a question, you can either raise a hand or you can put the question in the chat box. So while we are waiting for the questions, let me just remind everybody about the ongoing survey again. We are conducting a study to understand, how organizations are evolving their remote campus hiring process and what are the tools for the future, and also finding out how the students are preparing to adopt to this new normal. The good thing is we have already received the response from more than 5,800 students across countries. So we had done the survey from the student side. And right now we are doing the survey for the corporates, and you can stand a chance to win 100 assessments for free for your organization. So participants in this market study qualify for a draw. The winner will get a HirePro's AI proctored fraud proof assessment done for 100 candidates completely free of cost. And we promise to keep your response confidential. We will share the study report with you once you fill the survey. You can see the survey link in the chat box, and also you can scan the code which is there on my screen, and you can that link will take you to the survey and you can fill that up. And also we had mentioned about one of the participants from a corporate. We will be also choosing them for assessment. So there are 200 free assessments to be won. One way is to fill that survey, the link, and another one is actually to participate. So that you already done that. We will be choosing a lucky winner soon and we'll be informing you. Yes. So coming back to the questions, I see one question here from Sai Krishnan Jali, and I see I'm working as a recruiter. Can you please give me some suggestions? Can you be more specific? What suggestion would you like to know about? Okay, we're waiting for the answer for that. Anybody else has a question? Anybody else has a question? If not, then we can wind it up. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much everybody to participate, and thank you so much Pashupati. Thank you so much Mridul for being here and sharing your knowledge with the corporates, with the people who have attended the webinar. Thank you so much, and thank you all the participants from the bottom of my heart to spend some time and learn how the technology is changing the future of hiring and remote hiring. Thank you so much, everyone.
Ankit, there is one question on the average package for freshers.
Okay.
Pashu, you want to take that?
Okay, I see some more questions coming up.
So, see, Ashwin, it's a little difficult question to answer because we're talking about various kinds of job roles and other things. So if you look at that, the general startups gives for Java developers. Okay. So yeah, if you look at today, if you look at these startups, mostly you see, and of course, a lot of them are hiring for full stack Java developers. I would say the starting salary in most of these organizations could be anywhere, say, starting at around 15 to 20 lakhs. Of course, it's based on the tier of talent that they are hiring, the kind of job role that they have, because skill is not the only thing that really comes in. And then anywhere in the range of between 15, 20, 25. That's a little very broad range I'm kind of putting in. Obviously, it's much more than what some of the captives or some of the other product companies will also do. But then one of the things that you'll also want to let the freshers know is that when you're talking to organizations or startups, you need to kind of look at the complete package that they offer rather than just the salary. And that's what one of the challenges that organizations feel, that people only talk about take home salary, but they really don't look at some of the other benefits that we go. Some of them give stock options as well, though not many of them at an entry level, but you always need to kind of look at the thing. Shiv Sharan, I saw your question saying that if I have a problem in speech. So yeah, I think yes, yeah, I think Mridul has answered that. So not every job would require you need to have communication skill, and some of these problems I'm sure maybe kind of can get corrected also over a period of time. But there are a good number of roles where people primarily look at some of your cognitive technical skills. So I don't think that should be a challenge. Today we have people who have problems with vision who are there to write code because they have specific assisted software which helps do it, and so on and so forth. So I don't think you should think about whatever shortcomings you have. Possibly you should look at and work on whatever are your skills, whatever are your core skills, and if you can really build on that, I don't think there's anything that should kind of stop you. I mean, today organizations, because see the reason why, so HirePro is the entity which primarily focus on college hiring and automation. CareerNet is a recruitment firm which started off in '99, which is the parent entity, and we have a specific initiative called Prism, which primarily looks at people across, and that's what the diversity and inclusion is all about. We look at organizations which are hiring for people for gender diversity. We look at people who do LGBTQ hiring. We also help organizations and candidates who might have some kind of a physical challenge, how to overcome and then kind of get placed. So I think you can at least my response to Shiv Sharan would be you can reach out to the CareerNet website as well, and you will find Prism page, and if there are any job opportunity through that, you can also apply and try to do this. I don't think you should be worried about any of the shortcomings that you have.
I have some questions on direct messages. So in case if somebody wants to not share their identity, please feel free to send me a direct message, and I will share the question. So I have 4 questions here I can see. One is I'm working as a recruiter. Can you please give me some suggestions regarding the search criteria in Naukri?
Okay, since it's college, I guess ये syllabus के बाहर है because no, I think the question is a very valid one, but sorry, we may not be able to address it in this forum here. So because yeah, it's a very specific technical, and it might require a fair amount of time to showcase and tell you how to do this. Asking questions are easy, answering them is very difficult. So sorry,
Yeah.
but you might have to kind of pass this question.
Sure. The next question is we had a tremendous backouts last year, and I see compensation as the major reason. I'm not sure how much impact it had on the decision, and how much effective is it to have differential packages to attract freshers?
Okay. So I think this is a very contextual question because organizations do have differential packages when they are hiring freshers, right? So some of the organizations say that they look at a certain job family, they look at a certain tier of skill, and basis that they decide to offer a differential salary and also might go to differential campus. Some of them might actually go to the same campus and offer a differential salary as well, right? So yes, it has worked out for organizations. Some of them continue to do that. It might require a little more detailed analysis to figure out. Mostly what you've seen, if you go to the same campus and offer differential salary for different job roles, it may not work out. It is better to at least differentiate either in terms of the branch or, because obviously if there are 2 students from the same batch and they say that I'm getting different salaries, then obviously people get demotivated. So I think the right criteria of how you kind of differentiate talent is very important. This is part of the overall planning strategy when you're shortlisting campuses. And when you're, so because today a good number of IT services companies have 2-3 kinds of job profiles. So some of them are more aligned to the digital skills, the product development. Some of them are more around the IT skills. And some also get into infrastructure and sustenance. So broadly, I would say 3 job families, and obviously the compensations are different because the skill and the caliber is quite different, and that is how they manage the compensation for that.
One last question here. What's the role of technologies such as AR and VR in candidate engagements?
Ridul?
Yeah, so AR, VR can actually have a very good impact on a branding standpoint, much less so in the hiring process. So the companies that actually deal with AR and VR as part of their offerings to their end customers. So let's say you are a product engineering firm where you build AR and VR applications. And let's say you're a services firm, where you have the capability. So it can very effectively help you brand your companies, build your employer brand around some of the latest technologies. It won't just attract candidates who are interested in AR, VR, but in general, the community will start looking at you as a high-tech company where you deal with advanced technologies. So from an AR, VR standpoint, yeah, it's not really for recruitment, but for employer branding, it's a very good idea. At the same time, you don't have to build real AR, VR apps, although that would be the best. So let's say on your website, you have one section, using which you can use, where you can demonstrate live augmented reality or virtual reality. But otherwise, you can also talk about, some of your successes or how you look at augmented reality and virtual reality. Like, Google has this very interesting search, where you search for a particular animal. And then using augmented reality, you can place that animal in your home, and then, you can take some nice pictures around it. So it doesn't have to be a very fancy idea, as long as you have a basic playful AR, VR application that might be useful for your branding.
Yeah. True, very true. So creativity plays a bigger role than the budget here. When we talk
Correct. Yes.
So one interesting thing, maybe Mridul, I'll just share. So some of our clients during the pandemic is where the new office got inaugurated. But interestingly, they couldn't get people to office. So purely as branding initiatives, they created a virtual tour of their offices and other things. So these are, as you rightly said, primarily for branding and for people who are missing the office, the cafeteria and things. They definitely kind of create that virtual tour for some of their employees. So some of this has been used actually.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we have covered all our questions. Bridal, Pashupati, is there anything else you wanted to cover up before we wrap up?
Nothing from my side. Okay.
Yeah, nothing from my side. My only request with the audience would be, think about it. All these points that we presented today, they are based from our personal experience in working with many customers. So each of the bullet points actually had quite a lot of weight in it, quite a lot of experience behind it. So some of these, were nice to do's, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, but they are the must-have kind of requirements in today's world of hiring. And if you look at it proactively, you still have, 8 or 9 months left in this particular financial year, where if you implement some of our ideas well, you will be able to, reap the rewards of it, next April. So that would be our request. And, and I'm guessing, Ankit, we will be sharing the slide with all the.
We'll be sharing the consolidated summary points. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for everyone's attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a good day. Bye, everyone.